Alright, Andre, so you've been playing the heck out of Nintendo Labo VR, and based on your review, you really love it. But I don't know if you've answered every question everybody has about it, so I know you put out the call for questions to our fans, and, well, we got a lot in response. So, are you ready for a ton of questions about Labo VR?
I think I am, Derek. Let's do this.
Alright, let's do this. We're going to start with Lodestar Valor, who wants to know, do the Nintendo Labo VR goggles have a cutout for USB-C?
Nope, they do not. There are cutouts on the top for headphones and access to the volume controls, as well as, the cooling part, the vent of the Switch, which is important. But no, there is no cutout for USB-C. You might be able to add one yourself. I don't know if I'd recommend it, just because I'm afraid of damaging the structural integrity of the cardboard. So yeah, there is not one built in, so...
Alright. Well, next up we have Bellame, who wants to know, is it comfortable to use the headset while wearing glasses?
So that is a good question. I would say it's comfortable. Okay, so I did try out the pair of glasses, but I actually ran out of contacts one of the days I had Labo VR, and it does work. However, I did encounter one slight issue, and that's the fact that my glasses are wider, and they were actually physically hitting, I think, the lens of Labo when I put it fully onto my face. So I was afraid of playing too much with glasses, but I didn't want to scratch it up. But that might just be my pair. So it's probably going to depend on what kind of pair of glasses you have. Also, you can obviously hold it farther away from your face, but that might lessen the VR effect. So yeah, it does seem to work with glasses, at least mine. But you may want to be careful with them, because you definitely don't want to scratch those lenses. So
You kind of ruin the whole thing that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we got some unknown guy here. I don't know if I've ever heard this guy before, but somebody named John Cartwright wants to know, can you wear a hat and then duct tape it to your head?
Who's this guy?
I don't know.
I mean, there's nothing stopping you from trying, so you could, I guess, because he wants to make a head strap, right? He doesn't want to hold it to his face.
Right.
So, yeah, you could attempt it, but I don't see much point, because so many of the experiences depend on the toy cons. Like, I mean, you can only really play the Plaza and the videos with just a headset itself. And granted, there's a decent amount of the Plaza, too, or some of the games you can play with just a headset. So, I mean, even if you could, strap the headset itself to your head, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot, because you're still going to have to end up holding most of the toy cons anyway for the experiences, so it wouldn't really change that much.
He might be thinking in terms of Breath of the Wild.
Right, yeah, I think that question's going to come up a few times. So, again, you can try it. I don't know if I'd recommend it, especially with the weight of the Switch. I'm sure Nintendo has thought about this too. I don't know. I mean, that might be, it's going to be a little bit heavier on the VR side of things, or on the VR headset side of things, I think, than other devices doing that method. I don't know, I could be wrong, but, yeah, for Breath of the Wild, I don't know, try it out. Let me know how it works, John.
Try at your own risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, well, next up we have Aaron Cooper, who wants to know, I have a question, Andre. Riddle me this. If Nintendo have made such a robust tool for making your own 3D-style games in Labo VR Garage, and trust kids to use it easily enough, could this pave the way for 3D Mario Maker creations in Mario Maker 2?
Oh my god, that'd be amazing. I don't think it will, but it'd be amazing if there was some kind of compatibility with Mario Maker 2. I mean, it would actually be legitimately awesome if, putting aside the 3D aspect, if you could use, like, the elephant toy con in Mario Maker, or really, you can even use it as a pointer. If you could just use the headset of Mario Maker 2, that would be fantastic, where you have the whole, like, editing space in front of you. You can, like, look left and right. You can point exactly at what objects, where you want the tiles to go. Oh, man, now I want this, Derek. So sorry I twisted your question a little bit there, but yeah, that's what I want. So I hope they add the functionality. I think there's a small chance they might, but I'm not holding my breath for it. As for a 3D editor, probably not, but it'd be cool.
Robert Yit with the really important questions here. What does it taste like?
It probably tastes like cardboard. I haven't tried it. I'm not going to try it.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, Savajin wants to know, do you think you can improvise a head strap for the headset? Which kind of John already asked, but we didn't really get into that aspect.
I'm sure you can. You could probably use belts, you could probably use rubber bands. I mean, you may not want to use rubber bands, because if one of those snap, that would not be good. I'm sure there are ways you can, but again, for the Labo VR experience itself, there isn't much point to it because of the Toy-Con aspect. With Breath of the Wild, again, yeah, there may be, but, so I'm sure you can. You physically can. There's nothing stopping you. I just don't know if it'd be a good experience or not.
Right. All right. Hyperhound wants to know, what's the resolution compared to the Vive, and are headphones recommended?
So, I definitely recommend headphones. Like, it works fine without them, as with every VR device, but as with those as well, if you plug in headphones, it just takes it the extra step to, like, completing the immersion. And I was surprised how immersive it felt, especially with headphones. When I was fighting, I was getting a little bit, like, freaked out fighting some of those bosses in the blaster mode. Like, especially that snake-like creature that was flying around, or the eel, whatever it was. Like, that thing was creepy, especially when you hear the music and the sound effects coming through. It's remarkably effective. And what was the other question about how it compared to
the Vive? The resolution compared to the Vive, which I'm assuming is worse.
Yeah, I mean, straight up, like, the resolution is definitely lower on the Switch, on Labo VR, versus pretty much most other VR devices. Now, I haven't played Vive super recently. I have played PSVR quite a bit more recently. But I wasn't able to play any of them directly in time for this review. But going by my memory, I mean, those are better, but like I said, it kind of didn't matter. Like, would I love for it to be high resolution? Obviously. But every VR device still, even the best ones, still suffer from the screen door effect, and it's obviously there on Nintendo Switch more pronounced. But the fact that I'm already kind of used to it, the fact that I'm already used to, like, some of the issues inherent to VR, like, or not inherent, but like currently inherent to VR, like the aliasing or far off objects being, blurry. It just made it, I think it just kind of helped me get used to Labo VR even easier. And those experiences are built with that screen in mind. So it really wasn't much of an issue. Nintendo did a good job designing experiences to accommodate the lower resolution. I never really found it to be much of an issue. Even text wasn't much of a problem to read at all, which it has been on other headsets with higher resolution displays. So again, it is lower resolution. Go in expecting that, but don't let that. I've seen a lot of people try to sell the idea that this isn't real VR. The resolution is too low, or any number of reasons, and that straight up isn't true. Are there limitations? Sure, it works totally. It works completely fine. So I was impressed with how thorough of an experience it provided with the technology it has.
Mm-hmm. Alright, next up we have Space Marcus, who wants to know, do the VR games work with the Joy-Cons detached, particularly the games that use the headset? Because he's looking into getting a Velcro VR head strap, so he can play Breath of the Wild with the Joy-Cons at his side rather than holding it up to his face.
So in Labo VR, I think most everything, I haven't tested everything, but most experiences do allow you to play with the Joy-Cons detached. There are a couple that made me put it back on for some of the, I believe mostly for some of the Plaza games. Otherwise, I think you're able to play it with them completely detached. I mean, you have to for most of the experiences because of the nature of the Toy-Cons. And what's funny is even the the Discover section of Labo VR, which gives you a rundown of how the Toy-Cons work and gives you a little bit more information about that. It even tells you that you can straight up play some of these games without the Toy-Cons at all. You just kind of have to emulate how the Toy-Cons work, and it'll still function. So I tried it with a camera just for capturing purposes. It just made my life a little bit easier, where I was just twisting one of the Joy-Cons like you would the lens, and it worked. I think it takes away a lot of the fun, but you can do it that way. So now whether this will apply to Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey, I have no idea. Knowing Nintendo, I think there's a chance it can make it so you have to have the Joy-Cons attached, because clearly that's, you have to hold the thing to your face, and that's what Nintendo wants you to do. I don't think they want you to strap it to your face, but this is just conjecture. I really have no idea whether it'll work in those games or not.
Mm-hmm. Handy Dandy Mandy 25 wants to know, how do you record your gameplay of the Labo kit?
Yeah, so I ended up using 2D mode, which you can play every Labo kit with, or most of the games with, and I just used the built-in screen capture tool, and then I had to connect some of those videos, or more specifically, Dawn did. Dawn was a huge help in helping me grab a lot of these videos. But yeah, the method we used was use 2D mode, use a video capture tool, which thank God it worked, and you grab it in 30-second chunks, which you can then just link together afterward. Which means, unfortunately, there's really no good way to stream this without recording the screen itself.
Mm-hmm. Chris Aldana wants to know, are there any special challenges for the Frog Hop minigame, or just a classic case of how high can you get?
I believe that's straight up it. It's how high you can get with a single life versus the 3 you normally have. So it's definitely harder. If there's more beyond that, I don't think there's any more beyond that, but I haven't played it haven't played the challenge mode too far, so I can't say for sure if like maybe there's another secret unlockable or something, but I don't think there is. So I'm pretty sure that is it for the frog, or hop dodge.
All right. One Press L2P wants to know, how confident are you about how Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild being in VR will be after experiencing Labo VR?
I think Mario would be cool. I think it'll absolutely be cool. It was designed with VR. That mode was designed with VR in mind, and something that I kind of touched on in the review, and as we've heard now over the course of the last few years of VR, it's so hard to convey the experience of VR through video. Like, you can see it in 2D on your screen. It doesn't sell the idea of what it's like to actually be there. So so even though Mario looked, straight up, I think the mode looked a little bit lame in 2D. I think it'll be pretty cool in 3D. As for Breath of the Wild, that one's a little bit tougher because that one doesn't seem to be a true VR mode. It's more like a viewfinder mode where you're looking at the world in, I'm guessing, in a basically in 3D with a wider viewpoint, perhaps, than the normal game. I actually don't know if it's wider or not. But that's more limited. It doesn't seem to have any head tracking. It doesn't seem to have any, camera controls or anything with the based on the headset. So that one, I think, will still be neat. But I don't know if it'll be, I don't know if it's the best selling point for VR or as a VR experience. So
okay. Harmacist wants to know, any features of the Toy-Con VR Garage that you can't use without the Elephant Toy-Con, like for placing objects?
Wait, I don't follow. Sorry, what are they asking?
It just says, any features of the Toy-Con VR Garage that you can't use without the Elephant Toy-Con. So I guess he's assuming that you have to use the Elephant Toy-Con all the time.
Yeah, that's okay. That's what threw me off. No, you don't need the Elephant Toy-Con. You do for any experiences you create or play pre-existing ones that need it. Other than that, you can use just the Joy-Cons by itself. You can even create stages in docked mode using just the Joy-Con. So, you don't need the Elephant Toy-Con for that stuff.
All right. JVeg1990X wants to know, does Toy-Con Garage VR include a built-in node that generates random numbers?
Oh man, that's a good question. Honestly, I didn't have much time to spend at the garage, so I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't be surprised if it had one based on how insanely thorough the editor seems to be, and some of the random nature of some of the games I played, seemingly. But I really couldn't say for sure. So maybe, but yeah, I don't know.
Chu Plays Nintendo wants to know, do you think other games will add VR support?
God, I hope so. I love the experiences here. I can't wait to play Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild in their VR modes. And I really hope third parties can get on this. Thumper is on Switch, and I love it on Switch, but one of the things holding it back is it's not Thumper in VR, which is amazing. If they went back and added it, oh my god, that would be so great. So that's what I really do hope they add more. I really do hope they'll add more VR experiences. I think, I'm kind of thinking they will. I think this Labo kit has a chance of all of them to actually blow up and resonate with people, and I would love Nintendo not only adding more experiences themselves, but really open up to third parties. I don't know if they'll take that step, but here's hoping.
Yeah, really hope so. Pedro Police wants to know, do all the experiences run at least at 60 FPS? If not, any problems with dizziness or something? So looking forward to your deep analysis of Labo VR.
Yeah, it's a rock solid 60 frames per second. I never once saw any slowdown at all. It seemed Nintendo understood that, like, it's important to have a consistent frame rate. Consistent 60, and I never felt any motion sickness myself. I did mention in the review that Tom, he did feel a little bit dizzy at a couple of points, mostly when either turning too quickly or when he tried to actually move when creating a drawing in real space, which you can't do. There's no body tracking. So that created like a disconnect between his movement and what he was seeing on screen. Other than that, no one else I talked to or played with had any motion had any motion sickness issues. So it's not something I think you need to be particularly worried about.
Okay. Frank Platt wants to know, going back to playing other games in VR, would you see yourself playing through a game like that in Labo VR, or is it just a neat novelty you try for a bit and then switch back to the old TV?
Is he talking like a full game experience or something?
Like playing through the entire game in Labo VR.
Oh, man, that's a good question. I basically I would say I would want to play in VR as much as possible because it is such a cool experience. Like when I was playing some of these games in 2D mode for gameplay purposes, it reminded me of how much the VR part adds to them. Like, yeah, I mean, taking pictures underwater on the 2D screen, whatever. Taking it when you actually feel like you're underwater with a shark coming at your face, that's awesome. So I would definitely want to play the games as much in VR as possible. The drawback is, of course, it gets tiring. Holding the Switch up to your face does, your arms will get sore after a few minutes. Now, I ended up playing for quite a while, for many hours in VR, with small breaks in between to give my arms a rest. But that could be an issue for longer games. So, I mean, it's impossible to say. Like, I would probably still want to play it in VR as much as possible, but I'd also probably, give my arms a rest at some point and end up playing on the TV. And who knows if inertia might take over at that point. I just end up playing the whole thing on the TV. But VR is cool, so I would hope that that it worked well enough that I want to play it all in VR.
Right. Super Gamer Guy 64 wants to know, does it work with the Virtual Boy, and does it still feel good on the eyes?
Does it work with a Virtual Boy? It does not. However, there is a VR mode, or a VR video section of the game that has, I think, 33 videos, one of which is actually playing the Virtual Boy. So you can actually briefly relive what it's like to play the Virtual Boy. And we actually posted a video of it. Again, it won't convey what it's like because you're not watching it in VR. But it is cool that's there. And what was the other question?
Does it still feel good on the eyes? I guess.
Yeah, my eyes, Virtual Boy came with all those warnings about your eyes and whatnot, and Labo VR, luckily, doesn't have the same issues. My eyes never felt tired or really anything from it. Like, it felt much better than Virtual Boy, or even, even some other headsets. Like the fact that the fact you're holding it to your face means you can easily put it up or down, but also means it's not putting any pressure really on your face. So it is inherently more comfortable than a lot of these other devices, besides the arm tiring issue, which, granted is kind of a big one. But yeah, so I like that. My visor didn't get steamed up from my breath. It was quite nice in that sense.
Alright, Raul wants to know, confirm or deny, you can't wear the headset on its own because it needs Joy-Cons for head tracking.
I can deconfirm that, because the Switch itself has a gyroscope built into it, and that's what it uses when you're using the Toy-Cons, because the Toy-Cons are then going into, like for instance with the wind pedal, that's not helping the Switch determine where it is, of course, and you can play the Frog game with just a visor. So yeah, the Joy-Cons don't need to be attached for it to know what you're doing with the headset.
Cool. Bobby Dag wants to know, how much of the VR Garage in minigames can you play with just the starter kit?
Oh man, that's a good question. A decent amount, because I tried doing that when I first got it, just to see. I actually built it with the idea of it being a starter kit, so I could address this for just this question. But it was a week ago, so I kind of forgot some of it. I believe you can play at least one page of games by itself, so that would be 16 games, I think. And I wouldn't be surprised if in fact, I definitely know there's a few more later on too. So yeah, I would say at least a quarter of the games you can play with just the headset, and of course, there's also the fact that you can technically don't need the Toy-Cons for every game. You just have to mimic how they work, so you can play even more that way too. You might even play most of them that way. So
cool. Giancarlo Tomaz Zanoni wants to know, how long does it take to complete each game that comes in Labo VR?
I covered this in the review. On average, I would say a good average is probably about an hour or so. Some come in a little bit longer, some come in a little bit shorter. The Frog game itself is pretty short. If you're good, you can beat it in 20 minutes, I'd say, if not less. Whereas the picture-taking games, those definitely take a bit more time, because there's a mission structure. You have to do a lot of exploring, which is enjoyable, at least for the ocean one. The blaster game, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, but there is a challenge mode after where you can challenge your own scores, and that's what really it makes this kit so much better than other Labo kits, I feel, because the experiences are still on the shorter side, although they're much longer than most of the other Labo experiences, thank God. But they're also replayable. I actually wanted to go back and replay these missions, whether it was a blaster or the Bird Dash game where you're flying through the rings and it kind of felt like an amusement park ride. It was fun, and so even though the experiences are still on the shorter side overall, they're more replayable. So,
Denova, cutting right to the point, is it worth $80?
I mean, straight up for me, it is. I loved it. I thought it was great. Even if I had my own VR headset on another platform, I've borrowed a friend's long enough that I might as well have. It might as well be my own. But even with that, I would still buy Labo VR. The experiences here are distinctly Nintendo. The Toy Cons really do add a special layer to it, even if you have to build them yourself, which can be part of the fun, if you're into that. And yeah, so I would absolutely recommend it. Get the starter kit though if you're not sure. It's half the price, and you're not penalized for it because you can pick up the rest of the Toy Cons for $20 each, which brings out the same price as the normal kit. So you're not losing any money by going the starter kit route.
Mm-hmm. Tyler Quill wants to know, Stunt Race FX VR?
Oh my god. Yes, please. Jesus. Actually, legit, how cool would it be if they added a VR mode to like the NES games or the the Super NES games when they add those, hopefully, and Stunt Race FX. I forget, was that? Yeah, that was on there. That was on that list. So this could happen because PSVR had the pass-through where you could play any game in VR. It just appeared as if you're playing on a giant TV. They should do the same for Switch. Let us play some of those experiences on a giant virtual reality TV. And the resolutions of those games are low enough they're not losing anything in VR. So come on, make it happen, Nintendo. That'd be amazing.
We'll see. TNT Master 151 wants to know, how precise is the doodling game?
It is remarkably precise. Don't get me wrong, it's not 100% perfect, but it's so close that it still blows me away how it works. It even works at all. I mean, even other solutions or other options and other VR headsets aren't 100% either. So I would say maybe Elephant isn't quite up to their level, but it's close enough that, man, it is just amazing that it works at all. Like, I just love the technology behind it. It is remarkably precise, measuring your the tilt of your hand, the distance from your face, and all within the 360 degree world. Like, it kind of blew me away, and I hope that they use Elephant for even more games down the line. Like, they have that marble game, right? We have to set up platforms to get the marbles to the end. Give us a Mario game where you do that. We have to set up little platforms for Mario to cross, this 360 degree world around you. How cool would that be? So, yeah, Elephant's awesome, and there's a lot more potential with it.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have a lot of questions here from Top Spot 123, so I'm just going to take these one at a time. Says, how far to the edges of each screen side can you see? Basically, what's viewable beyond the center areas?
So, I don't have an exact measurement for you. I can tell you it felt comparable to like PSVR. So there's definitely still a goggles effect, as with most every device, where, your entire field of view isn't filled up, but it's close enough that it's just, I found it just as immersive as other devices. Again, obviously would love for, VR headsets someday to offer the full field of, like the full 180 degree field of view where you can't see any barriers at all. But in this case, it felt comparable to PSVR. As for YouTube, I meant to check that. I don't know. Maybe I'll try and check that later. And I'm not sure about anything involving YouTube. So sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say he has a bunch of YouTube videos. I'm like, I don't think compatibility would be viable there yet. Next up, we have Zeldaniel, who wants to know, do you think it's worth spending the extra money for the other Toy Cons, or is it better on reflection to just buy the goggles and blaster? Now, you already kind of answered this before, that you think the whole thing is worth it, but do you think just the goggles and blaster is enough?
Yeah, that's where it gets a little bit tricky, because the blast, I'd love it as a whole package. I'm not sure how much value you'll have with just a blaster itself. I love the blaster as well, but there is kind of a limited amount of replay, a limited amount of gameplay there, and the blaster is the longest one to build by far. So the value to time spent building it it's kind of lopsided if you're just using the starter kit, whereas it definitely feels more balanced with, when you have the other Toy Cons, all of which are quicker to build than the freaking blaster. So even though I love the blaster, it's kind of limited with the games you can play. And although there is a VR Plaza, which adds a decent amount of gameplay there as well, but again, it's great as a starting point if you're really not sure, but I really would recommend the full starter kit if you are interested in more gameplay experiences.
Mm-hmm. Jake Stinson, cutting right to the heart of the matter, wants to know, will it be a fad, a breakthrough, or a letdown?
Oh my god. This is hard to say. Well, I can say it won't be a letdown. I think, looking at early impressions, it seems most people really are impressed. I myself was blown away by this. I hope it turns into something more, but I could also see this being, after Mario and Breath of the Wild, I can see like Nintendo be like, all right, we're done, we're closing up shop, no more stuff for Labo VR. So I suppose on the one hand, I think Labo VR inherently has a limited reach because I don't think everyone wants to build their own headset. So, but I think there's always a possibility Nintendo or a third party too could release. I mean, I think there already are third party ones out there. Could release, a more standard headset with Labo VR still being compatible with all the experiences. So I really hope this leads to something more. But for right now, I would count on it just being Labo VR plus a couple of bonuses with Mario and Zelda. But I do think Labo VR has the best chance of turning into something versus any of the other Labo kits.
Right. Lonely Home Guy wants to know, does the Blaster game have increasing difficulty?
I mean, it does as you go through it inherently, but I don't think it does otherwise. There is a challenge mode. I didn't have much time with it, so I forget if anything changed. But you don't take damage or anything. It's really just about getting high scores. So it's not really difficult at all, I suppose. I mean, it can be to target some of the enemies. That's where the difficulty comes in. But you're not going to die in this experience, as far as I know, at least. So,
Nintendo wants to know: can you play Labo VR with something like the Pro Controller?
You can use it for like basic controls, like pausing, which I found helpful for like recentering the display at times, having it next to me, as well as menu navigation or when building the toy cons themselves to forward and go back through the instructions. Other than that, I don't think it has any function in game, so you need the Joy-Cons for those.
Positive Link wants to know, how much does it weigh without the Switch, and how is it with screen brightness?
Well, that depends on what Toy-Con you're using. So the camera doesn't weigh too much. The blaster, you definitely feel it. That's definitely on the heavier side. So yeah, for the most part, like, they don't feel that heavy. I think it's, them in conjunction with the Switch where you really feel it. I'm actually doing a comparison right now, and the Switch definitely feels heavier than any of these Toy-Cons besides the blaster. And what was the second part?
How is it with screen brightness?
Oh, fine. It even has the brightness setting in game, and the default isn't even on the maximum brightness. You can turn it up if you want. I never felt the need to, and you can lower it as well, of course. So yeah, screen brightness is not an issue at all. It's vibrant.
Purple's Nick wants to know, what franchise do you think would benefit from having a Labo VR mode like Breath of the Wild and Odyssey?
Oh my god, I could go on forever. Everything. I want everything. Okay, so a couple of things. One, even though it's not out, I have to cover it. Pokemon Snap, especially playing with with some of these toy cons and challenges involved. Like, okay, for instance, in the blaster mode, there's straight up a level where you're on a track. In each of them, the blaster. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. In each of them, in the blaster stages, you're in a tank, right? And one of those levels has a track you're literally on, and it reminded me of the track you're on or the vehicle and track you're on in Pokemon Snap. You add that to the camera Toy-Con, where you can zoom in and out to take pictures. Man, right there you got a perfect Pokemon Snap candidate, or the perfect controls for Pokemon Snap. Beyond that, Mario Kart, baby, specifically Double Dash. I would kill for a two-player co-op mode where one player is driving, the other player is gunning in VR, able to aim in 360 degrees, using the Joy-Con to throw out items. Oh my god. Then, hey, what about Tetris 99? Why not give us a Tetris effect, but for Tetris 99? That would be amazing. So, also, I think I already mentioned it, but I can mention it again. Thumper! Come on, Thumper, I want VR.
Bremming wants to know, can you use the blaster, the camera, etc. in the garage mode at all?
Yeah, you can use pretty much everything I think you can use everything in the garage. Some of the experiences are actually built with the Toy-Cons in mind. They have a little Toy-Con icon showing you which one you need, and you can build your own using whichever tools you want or Toy-Cons you want.
Mega Nerd X4 wants to know, with the Virtual Boy Easter egg, could you see a Virtual Boy collection come out for this?
Let me tell you, that would be amazing. I mean, I thought this would have happened on the 3DS, so I'm not holding my breath for it. But if there were a time, now would be it. Like, if Nintendo wants to get some extra money out of those Virtual Boy games, update them, colorize them a little bit maybe, and then put them on the eShop for Labo VR. gotta be fantastic. It will be really cool is actually if they offered one for free. Give us like Mario Tennis or Mario Clash or something, and let's buy the rest, or give them all to us for free. I'd be cool with that too. But it'd be neat if they gave you one as a bonus, and then you could purchase the others if you wanted. So I think that'd be neat. Like especially with the reference to Virtual Boy already in Labo VR, it'd be cool to let us fully experience the games because most people have it. Virtual Boy sold nothing. It sold less than Labo. So, it'd be a really cool throwback.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've gotten a lot of questions about headsets and head straps. I've kind of skipped over, but here's one interesting from Cresifo, who says, do the holes on both the left and right side of the base Labo VR already have a function, or do you think it's meant for a future add-on, like to have a strap clip into both holes?
Is he talking about the goggles itself, or?
I think so.
I'm looking at it now. I don't see any holes. I don't see it means the things the washers you use to hold it together. So yeah, I don't think they serve any purpose. Beyond structural integrity. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they'll be used for anything else.
Okay. All right. Scarecrow JC wants to know how much room does all the finished Toy-Cons take up with this kit compared to the first three?
I think it might actually be on the smaller side. I took in the video. You'll see all the Toy-Cons I have on the table. Actually, you want to take that back. I'm not sure if it's probably comparable. It's probably comparable to the Variety Kit. Now that I think about it, or the Vehicle Kit too. So yeah, it's actually pretty standard. It's not. I was gonna say it's not a ton of room, but I don't think that's quite true. It probably could not be a ton of room if you organized it correctly. But some of these are pretty big. The blaster itself is large. The bird you have to be careful with so you don't break the wings. So yeah, there's still that factor, which is kind of a negative. I literally have a whole closet full of just freaking Labo. So, I'm looking forward to when I get rid of all of them, except for the VR ones, because I really do love these ones. The rest I'm kind of done with, so.
Mm-hmm. Nintelligence, actually going off of that, wants to know, do you think the headset is sturdy and will last many play sessions, or will it deteriorate quickly?
This is something else I was concerned a little bit about, but once again, Labo proved to be remarkably sturdy. Granted, if you step on it, that'll probably be the end of it. You can always, the game does provide tips on how to fix your cardboard if you end up breaking it or breaking a component. As for the headset specifically itself, it feels sturdy, it feels well built, and not only that, I know I've seen some people concerned about with other VR devices, like when you take off the headset, like you're kind of a sweaty mess usually. Like there's sweat caught in the headset itself, and so people are wondering if that'd be an issue on Labo, especially with it being cardboard. That would perhaps get soggy. And this isn't really an issue for two reasons. One, because it's not strapped to your face, you don't really work up a sweat. And two, even if you did, none of the cardboard actually touches your face. There's actually a plastic shield in here that holds that the visors or the lenses come in, and that's actually what your face is resting against. So yeah, it's not really much of an issue. I don't think you have anything to worry about. You just have to be careful that you don't step on your Labo or whatever, or spill water on it.
Yeah. Pangolin87 wants to know, how replayable are the VR Plaza games?
Some of them, some are more than others. Some aren't even proper games. They're just cool little experiences. One is almost like a job simulator type thing in the kitchen, but you can't actually do anything but mess around. You can't actually cook, not that I know at least. But it's still neat just to play around with. Others, like the pinball game, are freaking awesome. Tom and I had a competition to see who could get a high score. It feels like a legit pinball table, if a bit on the easy side. And then there's a platformer, which takes maybe 10 minutes to play through. There's a music room where it's fun just to bash on instruments. So it really depends. For most of them, you'll get at least a minute or two of gameplay. The longer, better ones, you'll get maybe 10 or 20 minutes. So there's not necessarily a ton of those. But I do love the range of experiences there. And with 64 games, that's at least an hour or two of playtime right there, assuming you don't even replay any of them. So,
Marshall Gordiuk wants to know, do you see Labo VR becoming a big impact for all gamers, or is this more in line for just Nintendo fans?
Oh man, that's a good one. If you have a Switch, you're already kind of a Nintendo fan, right? So I don't see a ton of people picking up a Switch just for Labo VR. But there are more casual players that probably wouldn't consider themselves necessarily Nintendo fans, like my dad, for instance. He loves Breath of the Wild, but I don't know if he considers himself a fan of Nintendo. So yeah, I definitely think it can have some reach there. Maybe reach some people that, Nintendo games don't typically, but I don't think it's gonna be a huge thing or anything in that respect. It's not. This isn't gonna be a Wii Sports, I don't think.
Yeah. C Tarno 12 wants to know: can you put the Switch in the tablet in the dock and play with the Labo?
Yes and no. So you can use it in the dock for basic functions like putting the instructions on the screen to build devices, or building a game in the garage, or even playing some of those games. But here's a few problems. One, the main experiences all require it to be in handheld mode. You can't play them docked at all. So yeah, you need to use a headset and Toy-Cons for those experiences. Some of the Plaza games, as I said, you can play in docked mode, but the issue is the gyroscope within the Switch itself doesn't work in docked mode, which means some of those games are, even though they technically work, are also unplayable because you can't change your viewpoint. You can only look ahead, and that's a bit of an issue. So yeah, some things are available in docked mode, primarily for interface things. Gameplay wise, I wouldn't count on it.
This guy, Ethan, wants to know: haven't watched the review yet, but what's your favorite Toy-Con?
I love, so I have two, and I think, as I said in the review, I love the wind pedal. It's such a silly, goofy thing, and it works so well with how, in the frog game, when you press it, it causes you to jump as if you're, lifting off with your froggy legs, but at the same time, as you're flying through the air, that gust of wind from the pedal hits you in the face, and it sells the illusion. So while I like the frog game, I actually love it in conjunction, or I love the wind pedal even more in conjunction with the bird game, and specifically, actually I'm trying to remember if it worked. Yeah, and specifically in Bird Dash, I believe, or either the bird games, in which you can fly around, you fly as a bird, and then you can push on the wind pedal for a speed boost. And specifically, the Bird Dash game, I adore. It is so fun. It is so immersive. It really feels like you're flying through almost an amusement park, because you're doing these tight corners to fly through these rings. So that's a lot of fun. I've replayed it a ton, and then also Blaster. I really enjoy Blaster a lot too. I enjoyed most every experience, but Blaster and the Bird Dash are my favorites, I think.
Cool. Mr. TMO wants to know: how does it look when you put non-VR games in it? Vomit-inducing? Did you even try that?
It is weird. I haven't specifically put in non-VR games. I did just watch a YouTube video in it trying to test out VR, which, by the way, doesn't seem to work yet. So hopefully they patch that in, but that'd be really cool. Also, the home screen I've seen in VR, and that looks super weird too, because it's showing you just a normal image to your face, with your eyes treating it as the same image, so it looks totally bizarre. I don't recommend it.
And finally, our last question is: Biocopter returns. How epic is it?
It is surprisingly epic. I really can't overstate how surprised I was by the sense of presence that Labo VR has. Again, I kind of thought it might be one of those goofy little viewfinder toys, and it is, and yet it's a surprisingly legitimate VR device, at least for the experiences Nintendo has crafted here. It feels like when that giant enemy crab jumped at me, it felt intimidating. It's towering over me, walking around, breaking stuff in my face. When I turned around, there's a shark staring at me when underwater. Or even when I was in the house and zooming in on that little cute creature, it feels like it's in front of you. You can reach out and almost touch some of this stuff. So I was really surprised by how immersive and epic, if you will, it all felt. So I thoroughly enjoyed Labo VR far more than I even thought I would. So and this is from someone who's had quite a bit of experience with other VR platforms, including Room Scale Vive and PSVR. Remember, Astrobot was the Game of the Year last year. So yeah, the fact that I love Labo VR as much as I did surprised even me.
Very nice. But I think that covers it for our Labo VR Q&A. So thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And of course, make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Labo and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.